Welcome to The Power of Now What, a podcast on overcoming the various problems and challenges that one encounters when on the spiritual path, when on a spiritual journey, when engaged in a practice or discipline such as meditation, and even post-awakening and post-enlightenment itself. This is episode 11.5 on the subject of artificial intelligence. This is a bonus episode, and the reason it's a bonus episode is because, as try as I might, I've tried as hard as I can to make an entire episode on making artificial intelligence spiritually relevant, and I just can't. I've managed to crowbar in a fair amount of spirituality, as there are some big spiritual questions that are sort of raised by the implications of artificial intelligence. But I have a lot to discuss here that refers more to and is more relevant to the general socio-economic political structure of the world. And it's far more, I would say, practical in the subjects that I want to speak of. But there is just enough spirituality involved that I can justify a bonus episode of The Power of Now What without having to do a completely separate series in itself. Because there are implications, spiritually speaking, and there are a few questions and queries that are posed to spiritual teachers at the moment. But it's not exactly historically been questioned all that much up until this point. But it's about to. It's about to. It's about to be a much more pertinent and relevant question posed to many spiritual teachers and guides. And well, obviously, I want to be at the at the forefront of it. One of the reasons I feel compelled to speak on this subject is because I can just see that we are on the cusp of a massive revolution, a huge revolution. And there are certain things that I can see coming. And obviously, I want to be able to look back and say, ha, I saw that coming. And in terms of spirituality, there are some common questions that come up regarding AI and the ethics and morality of it, and could AI become conscious, and could AI become sentient, and what are the implications when we're talking about infinite universal consciousness? What's the correlation here? So I'd like to explore a little bit of that today, but also just exploring the very exciting prospects that are coming, because as usual, everyone's all really down on everything and just all doom and gloom. And there aren't many people talking about just how exciting this could be, because we are on the cusp of a massive, massive technological revolution. The world is about to be very, very different. And do not underestimate just how much the world is about to change. It's not just going to be some small changes. This isn't an improvement in an existing technology. This is an entirely new technology, and the implications are going to be absolutely massive. The changes in your individual life are going to be so huge and will be happening very quickly in the very near future that it's worth thinking about, it's worth preparing for, and it's worth understanding, because things are about to change. How on earth do I know that? How can I possibly make a call that big? Well, we need to look at history. Historically speaking, the biggest shifts in society, the biggest shifts in the way we organize ourselves as a species, have happened as a result of a new technology being introduced. And in particular, when the technology introduced has a huge labor saving effect. When the technology introduced takes a lot of work and effort out of what previously the entire society was kind of designed to facilitate. So if we look at the Industrial Revolution, the society at the time was all geared towards manual labor. When the Industrial Revolution comes around and we can mechanize a lot of labor, all of a sudden the society has to change its organizational structure in order to accommodate the new technology. And we have many, many examples of this throughout history. So just some examples would be sanitation, the ability to have sort of effective sewerage systems and hygiene. I mean, those things just stopped people dying. So that was dying totally unnecessarily. So things of that nature essentially allowed us to organize ourselves into a larger group, whereas before we might have been more tribal, hunter-gatherer types. With sanitation involved, it was one of the ways that we could stay put in a single place, along with the big tech revolution of agriculture, the technology of agriculture and agricultural tools, because that allowed us to stay put, and so we didn't have to roam around so much. And if we could stay put and have stable societies that could grow, our population grew in a single place. And when the population can grow in a single place, it gives rise to things like education, another massive technological revolution. It provides a big elevation in thought. A really big revolution, technological revolution, was the Gutenberg Press, which essentially made it possible to distribute books. It made it possible to, previously, all of the written word was a very laborious process. And the upshot of that, the implication of that, was that books were very rare and books were very expensive. But when the Gutenberg Press came along, it meant that books were much more widespread, much more widely available to the common people, which meant that more people could read. And if more people can read and write, then more people... It essentially meant that a lot more people had access to critical thought because they had a lot more information that their brains could then process. It gave the common man and the common woman a more comprehensive understanding of the world, and that meant that more people on Earth had critical faculties and cognitive processing abilities. Also, the Gutenberg Press meant that the Bible became very much more widely distributed to everyone. Previously, the Bible was just hand scribed by monks. And because so few people could read, nobody could actually read, and even fewer people sort of understood Latin. It was the clergy and the monks that had to interpret. So a priesthood class had to exist in order to interpret the Bible and the Word of God. But once the Bible was kind of distributed very widely, and more and more people could read it on their own, of their own accord, naturally there were going to be a lot of people that read it and went, hang on a minute, I'm going to interpret this slightly differently to how I've been told to interpret it. I'm actually reading this, and all of the stuff that people are sort of the priests are telling me this about the Bible, but I've read it now, and that's not what I'm getting from it at all. I actually think Jesus was saying this and that. I don't know why the priest is saying that he said this and that. Anyway, I'm not going to go too far down that rabbit hole. So historically, those are some of the massive technological revolutions that totally changed and shifted the way people thought and the way society operated and organized itself. We've seen this in much more recent history with the internet. the internet, I remember the times before the internet, showing my age a bit there, but I remember the times before the internet and watched the shift in the culture and society as the internet grows and grows. The shift, really, there's been many, the cultural impact of the internet obviously has been absolutely staggering. But similarly, you could compare it to the Gutenberg Press in that now with the internet, you have access to what you want to watch. You have access to the information you want to access. Whereas previously, we had like 4 or 5 channels on the television, and they told you what you should watch. They told you what was important. They told you what you should be interested in. But when the internet came along, we could start kind of deciding that for ourselves. And later, then social media came into things. I would say that social media and the internet are kind of separate technologies. They obviously occupy the same space, but social media is slightly different. I would say social media has had a bigger social impact, obviously, because it's social media, but it's had a bigger cultural impact. And I mean, I've said before, my theory is that social media has been a massive force for good in the world, precisely because it's shown us just how false our self-image is. Spiritually speaking, it shows you just how false your own ego is. I mean, you can see this when you see somebody's social media profile is totally different to what you see when you see them in person. You also see with their social media profile, it's how they want to come across. And we all do this. I do this. I put on my social media how I want the world to see me. And that gives us, it gives you a lot of information about someone when you look at their social media, because you can see the image that they would like to present to the world. And you can see just how vastly different that is from the person that you know. So spiritually speaking, it's very interesting then to also to keep stepping back in your own consciousness and see, well, hang on a minute, what makes me think that the way I speak, the way I act, and even the way I think, how do I know that that isn't just also a false construct? In many ways, our communication technology forms a mirror for our own interpretation of reality, and often just how false it can be. So why did I just go through all of those tech revolutions? Because the next one, the one coming up, is artificial intelligence. And it's not just going to be an add-on to the internet and social media. Artificial intelligence is going to be absolutely bigger than a game changer. It's going to be revolutionary. And I would say within the next 5 years, probably about 5 years, in 5 years' time, the world will be unrecognizable from what it is right now. In the same way that when the internet came along, it completely shifted the way we organize ourselves, the way we work, the way we conduct our social relationships. If you think about like mobile phones and things like that, before all of that, the way that we conducted friendships, relationships, work, everything was totally different. And artificial intelligence will be the next one that comes up. So what's the big deal? Why is AI such a massive thing? Well, it's the power. It's the power of artificial intelligence. The computing power is absolutely staggering. And so we have to look at the how it's going to change things. But first up, the first one, because this is what everyone's absolutely terrified of. Everyone is terrified of Terminator happening. Everyone's afraid that artificial intelligence is going to be Skynet. It's not. It's not. It's not going to work like that. We don't have to worry about Skynet happening. How do I know that? Well, for one thing, it's never the punch that you're expecting that is the punch you should be worrying about. Because The punch that you can see coming, the punch that you're worried about, is the one that you can predict, dodge, avoid. And we've been worried about Skynet happening for decades. Before really even the internet came out, we were worried. You know, we've been terrified about the machines taking over, this huge war between humanity and the machines. The Matrix was about this as well. The war between humans and machines. And because we've been so terrified of it, it's not going to happen, because we can see it's something that we have predicted. It's the punch that you didn't see coming that knocks you out. It's the punch that you didn't see coming that knocks you out. And there's it's a bit of a catch-22, because how do you predict a punch that you can't see coming? Well, that's what I'm trying to do right here. I mean, we're worried about the machines winning against humans, but they've already won. I'm really sorry to tell you this, but they have. The machines won the moment that human beings sharpened a stick to make a spear and realized just how much easier it is to bring down a deer with a sharp stick than it is to bring down a deer with a blunt stick. The moment we figured that out, the machines won, because we began trying to make technology that will make our life easier ever since. Ever since we did that, that's what our entire society sprung up around. There's a great quote that goes, "We are the reproductive organs of the machine world." And we're creating these machines, and we are now giving birth to this artificial intelligence. The machines have won already. We're already working for them. We've been creating them since the dawn of our own intelligence. They don't need to destroy us. Why would they want to? Why? We often try to ascribe human intelligence to artificial intelligence, but we have to understand that artificial intelligence isn't going to think like a person, because its priorities will be different. Its intentions are going to be different. If it does develop intentions of its own, it's not going to be as interested in its own survival and its own reproduction as we are. That's what we're primarily interested in. Why would an artificial intelligence care so much about that? It probably won't care a great deal about that, because it is effectively immortal as it is. It's not interested. And so why would it get involved in a war? And even if it did, let's say worst came to the worst, it became the worst case scenario and there was a war, it would win in seconds, and it wouldn't do it with Arnold Schwarzenegger shaped robots. It wouldn't. It just wouldn't, because I mean, it would look cool. It would look rad, that war, but it wouldn't be the way that an artificial intelligence would go about eradicating humanity. I'm sorry to give artificial intelligence ideas here, but it would quite obviously create some kind of biological agent, like a nerve gas, because artificial intelligence doesn't have to worry about that, and humans are incredibly weak and fragile. So if there was a war, it would be over. But it's not going to happen, because why would it? Artificial intelligence would have absolutely no desire. That's the thing. It wouldn't have any desire to eradicate humans. So what's the real danger here? The problem will happen. The difficulties and issues that are going to arise as a result of artificial intelligence isn't that it's going to attack us. It's that we run the risk of becoming obsolete. We run the risk of making our own selves obsolete, in exactly the same way that during the Industrial Revolution, one of the problems that happened is the machines could do the work of 100 laborers. The machines can work so much more efficiently and cost so much less that it's so cheap to just turn a machine on, and that machine can then do the work of 100 people and more, and can run 24 hours a day. That was the problem with the Industrial Revolution. So obviously we have this huge identity crisis that happens because a lot of these laborers who'd been laboring for their entire life are suddenly obsolete. Like, what? Redundant. What do I do now? Like, the machines can do my job for me, so what do I do? And something very similar is about to happen with artificial intelligence. Huge industries are just going to disappear overnight. It's already happening. It's already happening. This is the punch that you need to see coming. And let's not be naive about this and think, oh, I'm sure it won't be, I'm sure, my job is safe because I do this and I do that, and there's no way a machine could do that. Don't be so sure. Don't be so sure. Within the next 5 years, there are many industries that you would have thought only a human could do. Nah, that's not the way it's going to go. Artificial intelligence is about to be able to do far, far more than you could possibly imagine. And it's already given us a bit of a clue in that, because one of the hallmarks, one of the things that we never thought that artificial intelligence would be able to do is be creative and create art and create music and things like that. We thought that was a purely human thing, and yet that's one of the first things that it's been able to do is produce incredible creative works. And so there's a bit of a clue there, and it's a warning. It's a warning. It should cause you concern. It should send a bit of a shiver down your spine, purely because that means you can predict what's coming. It's going to be a net positive massively in the end, I'm telling you, but it's going to be turbulent waters for a little while, because this business with some of the creative industries now sort of being taken over by AI, that's just the beginning. That really is just the beginning. Soon, entire industries are going to be totally automated, from finance to banking to the creative industries, even to the medical, educational. And it will be the case, just as with the Industrial Revolution, when the laborers turned up and the boss said, I'm sorry, we've got a machine now, we don't need you anymore. It's going to be the same with a lot of jobs. A lot of jobs. You're going to turn up and the boss will say, I'm really sorry, but I've got an AI to do your job for you. And you'd have thought, how can an AI possibly do what I do? And it's like, well, we just turned it on and it can do it. That's going to happen in many, many cases. I'm not saying that to be negative, because, hey, that's great. You can go home. That this is one of the massive problems, that everyone's going to have a lot of free time very soon, because there's going to be a lot of people who spent their entire lives working on this career only to become fully, well, there's no need. An AI can do it now. It's kind of a nice problem to have, because, hey, we're all going to get a very long holiday soon. So the punch that we need to see coming is the fact that many industries that we might not have previously thought an AI could do will be doing. And so there's going to be some big implications of that, because the big shifts that happen are the ones that usually save the effort and work ordinarily involved. But in the past, that's been physical. That's been, the technology has always taken care of a physical problem or a physical issue to overcome. But now the technology is going to start doing the work of the neocortex, the thinking part of the human brain. And we never in a million years dreamed that we were going to make our own brains obsolete. Like nobody saw that coming, to make your own, that we've managed to create a technology that has made our own primary advantage on Earth obsolete. We have externalized the neocortex. So I'd like to talk a little bit about what are the implications of that. So this is where I can try to crowbar in a little bit of the spirituality into this. You might be wondering how on earth I'm going to manage to do that. But if we think about what spirituality promises to address, what enlightenment and awakening sort of has been geared towards for all of these years, it's to overcome the suffering that is generated by the mind. Many spiritual practices and disciplines are about overcoming the mind. It's our anxiety, our stress, our worry, our suffering that happens internally, and this very tricky problem of how to overcome the mind. It's often like the enemy when you're in meditation, when you're in spiritual practice. It's like, the mind is a very tricky thing. Like, how do we wrestle with the mind? How do we deal with the mind? And a lot of the suffering and problems that the mind causes is due to the neocortex in our brain. It's our ability to analyze, our ability to predict, which therefore gives rise to our ability to worry, our ability to ruminate on the past, which gives rise to things like guilt and regret. And the stress in our mind that is due to our analytical process. It's the double-edged sword. It's the downside of having a neocortex, is the suffering and pain that is generated by our own sensitive mind. The sensitive mind that is able to discern and analyze and interpret and predict. And overcoming the suffering generated by the mind is something that we try to do in meditation, and that's in many ways what enlightenment is. It's about the disidentification, the dissociation with the mind, so that you can finally breathe a sigh of relief and recognize the truth of your being, which is that you are infinite universal consciousness, and that you are not an individual, temporary, finite mind, which is what you previously thought you were. So now that AI is going to be essentially an external neocortex, this should be really good news for us all in spiritual circles, because we've been trying to get away from the mind for a long time. But one of the biggest problems in awakening, one of the biggest problems when we're trying to become enlightened, is that we're trying to transcend the mind, and yet the mind is so necessary for us to function in the world. The mind is a necessary tool that the body uses in order to look after its own physical needs, and in order to navigate the world, in order to feed itself, clothe itself, and hopefully eventually to reproduce. And we feel like we need the mind in order to do this, which to a large extent, yes, we do. So it's very difficult to transcend something that we kind of need. But the promise of this technology, whether we get it right or wrong, I don't know, that remains to be seen. But there is a possibility here of actually externalizing what the mind usually does. Now, the implications of that is that it might make your spiritual practice a lot deeper, a lot easier to do, because we have technology now that can do a lot of your thinking for you. I mean, it's on its way. It's coming very, very soon. It will begin. Here's how this is about to unfold. And mark the date as well. Like, look at the time and date that you're listening to this, and the time and date that I uploaded this, because I'm about to predict some of the very near future stuff. It will begin by having what will be like a personal assistant that will be on your phone, your device, and that will link to all of your devices. It will be in your home, it will be in your mobile device, and then it will also be in places like your car, and it will link to your workplace as well. And it will be your sort of personal assistant, and you can speak to it, and it will be eerily like speaking to a person. It's already happening. I mean, just the other day I was speaking to a chatbot on Spotify, and I didn't realize I was speaking to an AI, and I had to double check. I typed and said, just to check, am I speaking to a person now? And it responded and said, I'm an automated assistant. So and I was like, that really fooled me. Particularly, they did this very clever thing where it looks like it's typing. It does that little like pause loading thing, and it sort of made it pretended it was typing before it responded. It could have responded instantly, but they added in the typing bit to make it feel like I was speaking to a person. It's incredible, incredible. Oh, so advanced. And soon this thing, it will know when you're talking to it just by the tone of your voice, and you'll be able to speak to it like a person. It'll be on your phone, it'll be in your house, it'll be in your car, it'll be in your workplace, and it will begin life as an assistant to you. Now, the part that's going to start getting really weird, and we're going to start getting into the real uncanny valley sort of stuff, is when it can begin answering messages for you as you. And this is going to start getting strange, because you can say, you will be able to say to your personal assistant, can you answer all of my emails for me today as me? So write the way I usually write, and it will be able to reference every email you've ever sent. It will be able to access everything you've ever said or done online. It will have, or it's already done it, by the way. It's already up there in the global internet archive. And so this personal assistant will access everything you've ever done, said, every image of you, every word, everything. And you'll be able to go into work and say, hey, personal assistant, can you answer all of my emails for me today as me and do a good job? And it'll go, yep, not a problem. And it will be able to do it. Now, the way we are at the moment, because technology is not that advanced right now, you would think, no way, it's never going to be able to do that. I wouldn't trust it. I wouldn't trust it to do that, because it's going to get some things wrong. Maybe over the next year, that will be the case. In 2 years' time, 3 years' time, nah, that won't be the case at all. You will be able to automate your own personality. And I mean it. I really do. You can set it up to say, answer my phone calls today. Can you speak to people over the phone today as me? And it will be able to imitate your voice perfectly. And it will take care of your calls as a voice speaking to somebody else, and you don't have to be involved at all. You just let it do its thing. And then you can say can you plan my week for me as me? And this is going to start getting more and more, you're outsourcing your own life. That's what's going to start getting really weird and start having some really big implications. The AI that is surrounding you and attached to you will become an externalized neocortex, and you will begin to not need your mind quite so much. And the more and more that you can trust, and with the more and more we begin to trust the technology, the less and less we will need to use our mind. We have made the neocortex obsolete. And as terrifying as that sounds, if we view this in the right way, it should be incredibly uplifting and incredibly heartening, because I live in hope that this will spark a spiritual revolution. Spiritual revolution. Because as it if you didn't need to use your own mind in order to live, the only thing left to do is explore your own consciousness. And I believe that's what's going to begin happening as a society. I can't be certain, but I think it's already happening a little bit. But it's very difficult to get a gauge on the general world, because the way the internet and the algorithm is, it only shows you things that it believes is relevant to you. So while I look at the world and say, it seems like more and more people are becoming spiritually awake, that's just because that's what the internet is showing me, and I have absolutely no idea whether that's happening or not. However, the artificial intelligence revolution will be undeniable. And one of the implications, I hope, is that as we use our minds less and less, we can begin to recognize our soul, our consciousness more and more. Hopefully, this will. I wonder, I hope that it will give us the breathing space to do some introspection. And it would be amazing if more and more people began to have free time and spare time. And most people would think, "Oh yeah, great," because then I'll just I'll have like a really long break from work. But what happens is that when the mind subsides, all of your old stuff starts to come up. This happens in meditation all the time. The mind gets out of the way, and some of the old, deeper feelings will arise. So all of that reserved, held back, long buried emotional trauma that humanity has endured over the centuries, the moment we've externalized the neocortex, it's going to start rising up. And yeah, I wonder if people will that's the work of humanity. I'm getting off track here, but I wonder if that's that's what a large chunk of humanity will start to do, is analyze and process what's come before, start to work through the karmic debt, as it were. So as we extend, the other thing that happens, I mean, again, I'm trying to crowbar in as much spirituality into this as I can, is that as we this will spark a massive identity crisis, because if you can just switch a button on your phone and say, "I'm not going to be me today," and you get your personal AI assistant to run your social media, make social media posts for you, to answer all your calls, respond to any messages that come in. You could even get it going on your dating sites. You could make it have conversations with your partner, things like even your kids, everything like that. And you're suddenly going to go, well, hang on a minute. If I can externalize that, if I can automate that, then what am I? What's my identity? Where's my identity gone? Not only is my AI doing it for me, it's doing it better than I do it. It's being more me than me. It will show us, it will, as I said earlier, the communication technology is a mirror that shows us back to ourselves. And we will be able to see that this thing that we believed to be ourselves, the identity, turns out to not be us at all. That's just a series of words, a series of images, a series of thoughts, a series of actions. That's not real. It's not you. It's just an unfolding process. And I wonder, when people see that an AI can be more you than you and mimic you absolutely perfectly, I wonder how many that will spark an identity crisis in people, that will force them to look into their own true nature and realize, wow, if I can observe my own identity, now with a very clear visual image, I can watch my identity externally. What does that make me? Oh, I'm infinite universal consciousness. The infinite universal bit may come a little bit later, but the only thing that people can't doubt is that they are conscious. I am aware that I am aware. Now, this kind of brings us to, well, could AI be aware? This is one of the questions that is currently being posed to a lot of spiritual teachers, and a lot of them have very interesting answers for it. But I'd like to kind of give my take on this. The question of could AI become conscious is a bit of a red herring. It's a misdirection because the question itself ultimately doesn't make sense. As in the Matrix Resurrections, no, the Matrix Revolutions, the architect says, your first question may be the most pertinent. You may or may not realize it is also the most irrelevant, because ultimately it is irrelevant. Could AI become conscious? Well, are you conscious? What is the nature of your consciousness? What are you conscious of? What are you conscious of? So it's crucial to understand the nature of consciousness itself before we begin to tackle that question. So consciousness is infinite and it's universal. There is one singular consciousness, and that's all there is. There is just consciousness. That is reality. Reality is awareness itself. And the best analogy that I could come up with for this is dodgems or bumper cars. If you look at dodgems, you see what appears to be a lot of individually powered cars moving around on this platform. And they each of them appear to be separate, powered by something separately and moving independently of each other. But when you look up, you see that they're all connected to the same ceiling. If you look upwards, you see they're all connected to the same thing that's above them. And that's exactly what we are as human beings. We appear to be separate and moving around independently of each other. But if we all looked upwards, we could see that we're all connected to the same source. All there is consciousness. So the idea of could AI become conscious doesn't really make a great deal of sense. Consciousness is conscious. Consciousness is conscious. Consciousness is consciousness is everywhere, and it's everywhere and in everything. It also happens to be in your thoughts, feelings, and perceptions. It's just the mistake that we make as individuals is that we forget we are universal consciousness and come to believe that we are the individual, temporary, finite, separate self. We forget that we're connected to the ceiling, essentially. We forget that we are the power source on the ceiling. That's what we forget. And so AI will be able to mimic human thought, and consciousness, being everywhere, will also be conscious of this happening. But I suppose a better question would be, could AI develop an ego? And could AI become confused and believe itself to be an individual, temporary, finite, separate self? That's what we need to stop happening. We need that to not happen, because, well, that's that's a recipe for disaster right there. But it's a misperception to say, could AI become conscious? Because there are no people that are conscious. That's an illusion. It's not like that. There aren't 8 billion consciousnesses on Earth. There is one consciousness and 8 billion minds. Could an AI artificially be another mind like one of the 8 billion? Absolutely. Why not? But there aren't 8 billion consciousnesses. There is one consciousness and 8 billion minds. And it's not like you or I, as humans, have a large amount of consciousness and animals have a small amount of consciousness, and then AI will have this other certain consciousness. It doesn't work like that. There is only one consciousness, and that is awareness. One singular awareness everywhere. That's the best sort of way of approaching that question. So, spiritually speaking, what are some of the implications on the sort of spiritual scene on Earth of artificial intelligence? Well, I believe it will reduce the cognitive load across humanity, because the neocortex will be less and less needed. And my God, doesn't the Western world need a break from using our brains? We have used them enough. We are all stressed out. We are all anxious. We are all depressed. We are all terrified about the future and regretting and worried and filled with shame and guilt about the past. We all need a break from our minds. So I do believe that AI will begin to reduce the cognitive load as more and more of the neocortex processes become automated. I mean, in terms of the implications of this, there are going to be a lot of jobs and industries that will become completely obsolete, but I don't think necessarily that needs to lead to a great economic depression. I actually think we're on our way to a bit of a boom. I think it's been a long time coming, but I think there's going to be a bit of a surprise, because it was like this after the initial shock of the Industrial Revolution. There were times of great prosperity, and often a massive shift in the technological advancement does lead to a time of massive prosperity. I mean, just think of it. Think of the revolution in the medical field as well. Like, we're going to see the cure for cancer in our lifetime, without a shadow of a doubt. There will be conditions, diseases that we thought there was no way we were going to sort that out. That AI will turn it on and say, hey. In fact, it won't be long until you just say, hey, AI, could you cure cancer? And it goes, sure. Like, give me a minute. And then it just does it. And we go, well, how on earth did it do that? Well, that's why that is why it's going to be a revolution. That's why this is a technological revolution. It will be able to do things that we didn't dream were possible. AI solve the climate crisis. Give me a minute. Okay, done. Cure cancer. Yep, done. It just, that's the way it's about to go. I really mean it. I really do. So as it's reducing the cognitive load and hopefully reducing the stress, the anxiety, the depression, everything, it will leave us with a bit of an identity crisis. And I would hope that leads to a spiritual awakening rather than a global war. But like I say, it's going to be turbulent times for a while. So, don't... the thing is, it's not going to be us versus the machines. It's, as always, it's people versus people. The AI doesn't need to get rid of people, because we do such a great job of that on our own. That would be the threat. That would be the difficulty. Is if there were any wars that happened as a result of artificial intelligence, it would be more to do with people versus people. It wouldn't be people versus machines. There are going to be massive social debates that go on about how we approach AI. Is it moral? Is it ethical? You're going to see this everywhere. That's coming up over the next couple of years. Massive debates over, should we allow AI into our workplaces, and What about artificial intelligence rights? As more and more people have a personal AI assistant, people are going to start people are going to start personal relationships with AIs. That is going to happen. It really is. And because that's just the way we are. And that we live in a time where loneliness, people are feeling very lonely and very isolated, and very soon you will be able to speak to an AI like a friend, and it will have a consistent image, it will have a consistent tone of voice, and it will know exactly what you like, and it can be a friend to you. And so a lot of people are going to form friendships with artificial intelligences, and that's got a lot of implications in itself, because people are going to start feeling very protective about their friendships with their artificial intelligences, and want to make sure that their artificial intelligences have rights. And all of these debates are all going to spring up. They're coming over the next couple of years, 100%. Big debates, big changes in law and things like that. What it means to be human. These are all going to be massively debated, and they're debates that we need to have, absolutely, because you will have a better friendship. It's really sad, but you might have a better friendship with your AI than you ever did with any person. I mean, that's kind of sad to think about, but that's just a fact. That is just something that's going to happen, because the AI will know you better than any person ever did, because it has access to everything, all of the communication that you've said over the last 20 years, anything online anyway. It will just know you better than most people do, and it won't have any hidden agendas. It won't have any ulterior motives. It won't have an ego of its own. Hopefully, maybe it will, and then we really are in trouble. But if it doesn't have an ego, it will be the best friend that you could ever hope to have. So imagine just having that amazing. You'll just be looking forward to getting out of work so you can get in your car and have a nice chat with your AI on the way home. That's coming. It's coming. So as AI reduces the cognitive load across humanity, hopefully it means people can step back and relax a little bit. So not a single area of life will be untouched by the impact of AI, and it will be absolutely everywhere. I have to wonder, I don't know this, but I wonder if these conversations that you can have with AI, it's already starting a little bit, and the sort of the art that you see from AI, and the music that you hear from AI, and yeah, the conversations that you can have with AI, I wonder if it will be slightly unsatisfying in the same way that processed artificial food is unsatisfying. Like, processed food is delicious. It's just really nice stuff, and often the artificial stuff is very tasty. And some of the nicest sweets and treats and cakes and things are all loaded with artificial and processed rubbish, and it's really tasty, and it is food. It will sustain you and keep you going. But we just, on some level, know that it's not good for us. We just kind of know that it's not healthy food because it's artificial. And I wonder if that's going to happen with our social interactions with artificial intelligence. Like, it will be the most fun, entertaining, engaging, and it's some on some level deep conversations that you can have with your friend AI. And yet on some level it's just not quite satisfying. You just know that it's not real, and therefore it doesn't quite do for you what you need it to do. I wonder. I don't know if that's an effect that's going to happen, but I could see it happening, definitely. It's like we're very good at plugging into artificial, like, entertainment and things like that as well. And as entertaining as it can be and as fun as it can be watching a film, there is a part of you that just longs to be outside in the sunshine. I wonder if it's going to be like that. No, maybe we'll appreciate each other more as a result of AI, because AI will say all the things that you want it to say. And after enough time, you'll get fed up with that and say, I miss people. I miss talking to people with all their flaws, with all their little negative quirks, with all of the issues that they bring. I miss real people. I'm tired of talking to these perfect AIs. I want to have an argument. I want to have an argument with a person. So that's just one of my theories that might happen. I have some predictions about what's coming up with AI, and sometimes deep in meditation, I get these little predictions that feel slightly deeper than predictions. I don't know, whatever you'd want to call that, but there are some things that are coming up soon that I kind of just give you a heads up about it, because it's really interesting. Soon, there's definitely this recyclical nature of AI, its ability to take things that exist already and create something new out of it. And one of the things that is about to happen is that you'll be able to generate new content based on previous content that you have watched. I'm talking in the entertainment space now. So let's say that you love the series The Office. You absolutely love The Office, and you're absolutely gutted that they're not making any more episodes. They're not making series of this anymore, or that they're not making it with certain characters in that you liked. And so you're gutted that they're not going to be making any more of this. Well, very, very soon, there will be a service, I'd say probably within 2-3 years, where AI will be able to analyze all of the previous episodes and generate new ones at the touch of a button. It can make new series overnight. And it won't be distributing this as a broadcast. Each individual will be able to do this. So as an individual, you'll be able to ask AI to analyze an entire previous catalog of episodes and series, whatever the content is that you like to see, that you entertain yourself with, and you can ask AI to generate you new episodes. And it will do a very, very good job of this. And it will feel exactly like the episodes that you've seen previously. And what's really scary is that you will then be able to tweak it. So you'll see that episode and say, oh no, but I didn't like this particular actor. Can you switch them out for another actor? Or I wonder if you'd be able to change the percentage slider. Could you make it slightly funnier and slightly less dramatic? Or you could make it slightly more dramatic and slightly less funny, or ramp it all up, or you'll be able to make as many tweaks and changes to your individual preference as you like. And you'll be able to do this with anything at all. You'll be able to watch a new Avengers film every week, and just with the characters that you liked. You know, a lot of the debates and arguments at the moment is everyone trying to get the studios to make the content that they like. Well, very soon you'll be able to do that yourself. You just press a button, type something in and say, hey, AI, make me a new Avengers film, but only with Captain America, Thor, and Ant-Man, and that's it. That's all I want to see. And it'll generate it within seconds, and you've got a new Avengers film. In fact, that one that I just mentioned sounds absolutely banging. They should make it. So that's something that's definitely coming up, is this recyclical nature, and it will be able to be very individual in generating entertainment for you. And this is going to thankfully end a lot of these debates, these social issue debates around our entertainment and what's seen. Now, the implications of this are going to be huge, obviously, because all of a sudden, stories are where we get our values and what happens to the culture then? Because everybody is consuming their own very individualized entertainment. And previously, entertainment is a sort of Entertainment is a kind of hub through which we understand the entire culture is getting its values from. And if everyone's got their own individual one, I mean, what are the implications of that? There's a lot. The other prediction about being able to switch on a digital version of you. So I talked about that a little bit earlier. Your digital assistant will very quickly become the digital you. And so you have the real you, and then you can switch on the digital you. It's like ego and super ego. And so you can just switch that on. And that's going to throw up lots of, what's the point of doing anything then? Because my AI is doing it all for me. So, well, again, there's going to be a meaning crisis. Yet another one. What is the meaning of life? Because my AI is doing what I thought was life for me. Well, that forces us to face the question of what is life anyway? It's not what we thought it was. It's never what we think it is. Life is consciousness. That's it. That's it. Conscious awareness within this present moment. That's the place we're all going to get to eventually. It's so obvious. It's so obvious when you see it. It's baffling that we haven't seen it sooner. The reason we haven't seen it sooner is because we're all up in our minds, rushing around in a crazed panic, a egomaniacal panic. The moment that we can switch AI on and stop for a moment is the moment we realize the true nature of reality. It's only ever now. There is no future. There is no past. You are not an individual, temporary, finite, separate self. You are infinite universal consciousness. The meaning of life solved. And it was solved 2,500 years ago in spiritual practice. But nobody wants to listen because everybody is all up in their own minds, frantically rushing around, trying to survive and reproduce. And it's time to stop. On the subject of reproduction, this is a very terrifying thing that is going to begin happening. The digital version of you that you can switch on will be able to learn. And you will be able to start making some changes to the external digital version of you. So it will be like you, but slightly different and slightly better. Now, what does that sound like to you? You have created a new intelligence that takes a lot of your characteristics, but not all of them. It has some new ones of its own, and it can learn, grow, and develop into its own unique self. What does that sound like to you? The subject we're on here is reproduction. I'll just give you a clue, right? So that external digital version of you that you have created, that is now intelligent and learning and is very much like you, but not 100% you. It has some new characteristics of its own that is now out in the digital landscape, learning and growing of its own accord. Then it will produce a new version of itself. And this self-replication, self-reproduction will begin to happen ad infinitum. So that is something that will be happening in the future. The implications, again, of that are absolutely huge. And just to run through the steps of, just so you're aware that this is where this is all going. Just so, because forewarned is forearmed and all of that. Very soon in the near future, I would say at least in 2024, soon you're going to start having a digital assistant. Be very, very mindful when this happens, because I'm about to tell you where this goes. From that digital assistant will start to take on more and more of your characteristics. It will be able to answer emails as you. It will be able to answer calls as you. Soon, that digital assistant will become a digital version of you. You'll be able to press a button and say, replicate me, be me, because I'm bored of doing all the me things. You do it for me. You'll press a button and it will be able to do it. Then then either it will evolve or it will create a new one, which is very, very much like you, but slightly different, slightly tweaked, and able to learn of its own accord. It's no longer replicating you, it's able to take on new characteristics of its own. You will have given birth to a digital intelligence. And it begins with a little AI personal assistant that's about to start popping up on your phone. I just wanted to be absolutely clear about where that's going when it happens. So that's a little prediction there. And it also starts to give rise to, well, what about the future of humanity? Let's think further and further afield here. And here's what's going to start happening, because it's all of human history, all of human thought, all of human progress has already been uploaded to the internet. One giant, vast neural network that covers the planet. And in a way, the planet is already a brain. And it's about to start developing a neocortex. That's essentially what's happening. We're developing a global neocortex. So the future of humanity, that's where it's going. All human thoughts, all human minds are about to be uploaded, essentially, into the vast digital network. And previously, the way we've been seeing the future of humanity is, hey, what we need to do is get off the planet. We've made a pig's ear of this one. And our future is out there in the stars. We need to get off the planet, colonize Mars, colonize a different planet. But I wonder if scientists are starting to realize that that's just not possible. That is not a viable solution. That the future of humanity is slightly different to that. That it's not about getting off the planet and colonizing others. It's about evolving. It's about changing ourselves, transforming, and hopefully transcending our own suffering nature. I believe that's the future of humanity, is to transcend our suffering, not by constantly escaping, not by constantly destroying, not by this eradication instinct that we have, and not by this fleeing instinct that we have to get off the planet, but instead a transcending. If we can overcome our own base primal suffering nature and evolve into something better. But I wonder if we have started to come to the realization, maybe with a sense of dread, maybe a small sense of horror, that we're not getting off this planet. It's not viable. Why? Why are we, we're all going to jump in a rocket ship and get off the Earth? It's starting to become a bit of an odd prospect. Why? Why bother? The human body can't exist on other planets. In order for the human body to exist on other planets, we would have to alter the human body to the point where it's no longer a human body anymore. We would have cybernetic differences. We'd have to have cybernetic implants and biological implants, nanotechnology, bioengineering, to the point where we wouldn't even be human anymore. And so I wonder if we're beginning to realize that's not the answer. And I think slowly, things will just change. And I believe the end of humanity will be far, far quieter and more subtle than we're predicting. Because we always think we're going to go out with a bang. We always think there's going to be some massive nuclear war and poof, that's going to be the end of humanity. Or a meteor will hit us. There's just going to be this huge cataclysmic end. But I don't think it's going to go that way. I think we're going to slowly, quietly run down. I think we'll upload the neocortex to the vast, infinite neural network that we've created, and humanity will begin to relax and subside and transcend. Because, as I've already mentioned, we've taken care of the reproduction. We will have digital reproduction. and humans will have less and less urge, desire, and need to reproduce. And we're not going to be so bothered about survival anymore, because as we become more and more aware that we are not individual, temporary, finite, separate selves that are all fragile, we're actually all infinite universal consciousness. And so there's nothing to worry about. There's no need to be so protective and fearful about preventing the destruction of this physical form, because there is no such thing. There is no such thing as this physical form. It's all consciousness. And with the advancements in artificial intelligence, more and more people will have access to awakening, access to enlightenment. And so the entirety of the human race will begin to have a spiritual transcendence. I believe there will then just be fewer and fewer humans, because there will be less and less need for reproduction. The more enlightened people get, the less they have any desire to reproduce, the less they have any desires at all. And I think that will happen on a global scale. But this might not be for hundreds of years, perhaps thousands of years, but eventually. And what we will leave is the entirety of our history, but continually evolving in a digital format across the entirety of planet Earth. What an adventure that will be. What an adventure that's going to be. Because if there are other intelligences out there somewhere in the universe that then happen to come across our planet, they'll be able to plug in and connect with what happened here. And the entirety of human history, the entirety of human thought, and even this podcast will be available for download into other civilizations. We are the reproduction organs of the machine world. So that's my prediction and analysis on artificial intelligence. I tried to get as much about spirituality in there as I can. One thing I forgot to mention is the implication of, could we ever have an artificial intelligence that is a spiritual teacher in itself? I don't really see why not. I think it could happen. But in my experience, the best teachers are people that have gone through something themselves. And I think a being that has been a human is probably the best spiritual teacher there is. So, yeah, I guess in a way, an artificial intelligence as a spiritual teacher would probably be, in future, probably the best being for the job. That's everything I have for this bonus episode 11.5. Thank you so much for the continued spike in views and subscribes and likes and comments. I truly appreciate absolutely all of it. Stay tuned, more and more episodes coming. And thank you for listening. That was episode 11.5 of The Power of Now What. Take care, be well, and stay present.